Regarding this horrific Southport case, there's obviously a significant update in the case, and some people might be looking for opinions and speculation. If that's what you've come to my video for, you'll be disappointed, because I will not give you opinions or speculation on a live criminal proceeding. What I can do is talk about the official statements and some tangential issues which might affect lots of people, which won't come close to affecting this trial, which you might find important nonetheless. I'll come back to the Free Speech Union page in just a moment. The official statement from Merseyside Police is as follows. Chief Constable Serena Kennedy said that today the Crown Prosecution Service has authorised Axel Rudakabana, 18 years old, to be charged with 2 further offences. Of course, you'll remember from the CPS website here that he was charged with 3 counts of murder and 10 counts of attempted murder following this tragic incident. But coming back to the statement, the 2 further charges relate to further offences in relation to evidence obtained by Merseyside Police during searches of his home as part of a lengthy and complex investigation following the events of the 29th of July. Obviously, it's been 3 months since then, so they've obviously taken the time to thoroughly search, investigate, bring back materials, investigate those materials and so on, and those additional charges are now as follows. First of all, the production of a biological toxin, ricin, contrary to Section 1 of the Biological Weapons Act of 1974. And secondly, possessing information, I'll come back to the legislation for this in a minute, but possessing information, namely a PDF file, entitled Military Studies in the Jihad Against the Tyrants, the Al-Qaeda Training Manual, of a kind likely to be useful to a person committing or preparing an act of terrorism, contrary to Section 58 of the Terrorism Act. These again were confirmed by the CPS on its news website, but again together with another warning that they are determined to deliver justice in this case, and as such remind all concerned that criminal proceedings are live and that he has a right to a fair trial. It's extremely important that there is no reporting, commentary or sharing of information online which could in any way prejudice these proceedings. And that is the reason for my video here, because if anyone learned anything from the initial aftermath of this incident, it is that there's a lot of people have been charged with offences of sharing information, something I will come back to in just a moment, but also encouraging and inciting violence and so on. But the most important bit that I would stress to you here is that commenting and reporting and sharing information online could potentially jeopardize a fair trial. Now, why is that important? Well, speaking very generally, a fair trial is absolutely important for anyone charged with an offence, because if you want guilty people to be found guilty at a trial, it needs to be a fair trial, because if it is not a fair trial, then there's a potential route for acquittal. And likewise, everyone is presumed innocent until found guilty. And so there is a very strict rule against reporting and making comments that could jeopardize a fair trial. But nonetheless, coming back to the offences with which he's now been charged, these are contrary to Section 1 of the Biological Weapons Act 1974. That is, that no person shall develop, produce, stockpile, acquire or retain any biological agent or toxin of a type and in a quantity that has no justification for prophylactic, protective or other peaceful purposes. So obviously certain chemicals are to fight disease, or protective chemicals, or some other kind of peaceful purpose, or any weapon, equipment or means of delivery designed to use biological agents for toxins for hostile purposes or in armed conflict. And so the CPS have charged him for the production of a biological toxin named ricin. The second charge under Section 58 of the Terrorism Act, that is, where a person commits an offence if he collects or makes a record of information of a kind likely to be useful to a person committing or preparing an act of terrorism, possesses a document or record containing information of that kind, or the person views or otherwise accesses by means of the internet a document or record containing information of that kind. But now it's also important to look at what is and is not reported between these 2 CPS reports of the charges. The first, the murder and attempted murder charges, and secondly, these 2 charges under the Biological Weapons Act and the Terrorism Act. And and regarding speculation online that the police have addressed here. And this is why I'm confining my commentary directly to the official statements here and to emphasize their point. The police say here, you may have seen speculation online that the police are deciding to keep things from the public, and they say that's certainly not the case. They say we've been given extensive guidance by the CPS in relation to what we can say publicly to ensure the integrity of the court proceedings are protected, and therefore we're restricted in what we can share with you now whilst the proceedings are live. Following the events of the 29th of July, the searches of his home resulted in an unknown substance being found. Testing confirmed that the substance was ricin. We've worked extensively with partners to establish that there was a very low risk to the public, and I want to make that reassurance clear today. I can also tell you that there was no ricin present at Hart Street. When the ricin was discovered, all necessary steps were taken so we could be sure that no one was at risk. This was a multi-agency response. Expert advice and guidance was received and adhered to throughout the investigation. Now, doubtless the police reference to speculation online may be as to motive for the incident on the 29th of July, and to that the police say this. At this time, counterterrorism policing has not declared the attack on the 29th of July a terrorist incident. I recognise that the new charges may lead to speculation. The matter for which Axel Rudakabana has been charged with under the Terrorism Act does not require motive to be established. For a matter to be declared a terrorist incident, motivation would need to be established. We would strongly advise caution against anyone speculating as to motivation in this case. These criminal proceedings against Axel Rudakabana are live and he has a right to a fair trial. And then the emphasis again, which I will emphasize and repeat to you here, it is extremely important that there is no reporting, commentary or sharing of information online which could in any way prejudice these proceedings. I want to remind everyone that the trial is scheduled for January next year. And I reiterate that to you here as well in regard to all of the charges against this individual. One thing I will raise is in respect of many of the charges and indeed convictions where people have been sent to prison for making comments and posts online, there is the real possibility that many of those may now be at risk because the Free Speech Union here say that they suspect that some of the prosecutions of people for saying things that are supposedly inflammatory online. For example, the man in Cumbria was sentenced to 8 weeks in jail for reposting certain memes on Facebook. At the very least, they say, may now have grounds for appealing those sentences. They also say that they've provided legal assistance to several members who've got into difficulty over the summer for saying things online, and one of which, Royal Marines veteran who was prosecuted for a Facebook video, has pleaded not guilty, and his trial is forthcoming, and they are paying for a solicitor and barrister. And again, a reiteration by the Free Speech Union that it is worth bearing in mind, again, that you shouldn't be saying anything online publicly about any forthcoming trial, because this is what we refer to as the rule of sub judice. If you say anything online or spread information that could prejudice ongoing criminal proceedings. So please do take the warning there. I know there might be a lot of questions as to who knew what and when and what effect that might have, but all of that is to be left to the criminal trial. So my main purpose for this video is to discourage anybody from having those conversations online. I know it's tempting when you get frustrated, you get angry, and you might want to share those views online. Some people may assume that these rules will not be used against individuals, but as you've seen in the last weeks and months, people have been prosecuted for things they've said online. For example, if you made a post online and it went viral and it got tens of millions of views, that might well be used as an argument that it is not possible to have a fair trial, and therefore it could prejudice the trial in that way. So either way, I hope that's been helpful and where these charges have come from. So thank you for watching.